Hello, thanks for joining me for another First at Home Sunday School lesson. This is Brother Woody Turner, Minister to Families at First Baptist Gadsden. And this week's lesson is it's a doozy, I'm going to tell you. It's got a lot of drama and intrigue. It could be made into a made-for-TV movie script kind of a deal. It's an interesting story. And the title of it is Jesus Casts Out Demons. So he does that a lot in the scriptures, in the New Testament there, the Gospels. But this one is probably the most odd of all of the demon casting outing stories. The background passage, or the passage we'll be looking at, is Luke chapter 8, verses 26 through 39. And in this passage, we're going to meet a guy. We really don't know his name, but some people call him Legion, because in the passage we'll see here that that's really the only name that Jesus gets out of this man who's possessed with many demons. It's apparent from other texts, thousands possibly of demons, which is a kind of a chilling, it is a chilling thought. And in this text we're going to see Jesus' authority on display. We're going to see probably more than his authority in my opinion, or at least just as much, Jesus' mercy and compassion is on display here. So several interesting points to be made. Our three main points from our Sunday school lesson are: number one, the demons recognize the Son of God's authority. Two, the people, or the Gerasenes, fear the Son of God's authority. And thirdly, the man, the demoniac, or the possessed man, the formerly possessed man, the man obeys the Son of God's authority. So those are our 3 points today, and we will get right into our lesson this week. All right, our first point is the demons recognize the Son of God's authority, Luke 8:26 through 33. So we're going to read that together from the English Standard Version, Luke chapter 8, verse 26. Then they sailed to the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. It's important to note this is in the land of Gentiles. This is not Jewish people. When Jesus had stepped out on land, there he met a man from the city who had demons. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he had not lived in a house, but among the tombs. And tombs, we think of gravestones, but in this case, in this particular region especially, there have been discovered specifically tombs that are habitable. It's more like caves. And if you remember the story of Jesus' burial, he was buried in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, and a rock, heavy stone was placed in front of it. So this is more like a sepulcher or a stone cave, something carved out of the hillsides and that sort of thing. So it's a place that a person could live. Just to paint the picture for you, he's not, sleeping on the grass like a dog, but he is, basically living in caves. So this man who's running around naked, sleeping in caves, he's obviously not in his right mind. The scriptures tell us he's possessed with demons. He has multiple evil spirits in him. And when he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." It's my understanding here that this is not the man speaking, but this is the demonic forces speaking through him, speaking for their own behalf. And that'll become important later on as we try to draw some truths out of this. I beg you, do not torment me. Verse 29. For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many a time it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles. But he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the desert. Jesus then said to him, or asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. Or for we are many in another place. So that's what I'm thinking. At this point, all up to this point, this is the demon talking, or these are the demons talking. He says, "What is your name?" Legion, because I've got a lot of demons in me. And they begged him not to command them to depart into the abyss. Now a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside. In Mark's gospel, we find out this is 2,000 pigs. So we're not talking about 30 pigs, which doesn't really matter, but in some ways it does matter. This is around 2,000 pigs. So now a large herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him to let them enter these. So he gave them permission. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the pigs. And the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. So that is one of the craziest stories in the New Testament. You won't find anything more outlandish and weird. You might find some contenders, but it's just a bizarre story. And if you could imagine watching it, a naked man running out of a tomb, and then a few seconds later, 2,000 pigs screaming, running into the lake, drowning themselves. What a crazy thing to be seeing. And we'll see that it in fact was so crazy it scared these people. So let's take a look at a few things here. One of the things I want us to consider right off the bat, as I said, they're in Gentile country. Do you think Jesus knows that? Of course he does. At some point in the Gospels, he's made the point that the good news has gone to the Jews first. And he seems to even demean us Gentiles, including myself there, calling us the dogs. I don't think that he means to be insulting. I think he's speaking the lingua franca, if you will, the language of the people there. He's using terms that they understand, and maybe even speaking a little tongue in cheek when he said that to the Gentile woman. About even the dogs, eating the crumbs that fall from the master's table in that conversation. But he is intentionally in Gentile territory, and he's not there for the vacation time. He's there to continue his ministry, even if it's a short one. So he's there, and he steps on the land, and there met him a man from the city who had demons. So the first person he meets is a man who's full of demonic spirits. I want you to note the compassion of Jesus here. We never see in the text that the man appealed to Jesus in any way. I'm not saying that he didn't, that it's impossible to think that he did, but I'm just saying we have a lot of information about Jesus talking to the demons and what the demons said. There's nothing here that says, and the man himself spoke this, or once he was healed said this, or in other words, the implication here seems to be that the man was out of his mind. He could not speak for himself. The demons were speaking through him. So what that tells me is that Jesus comes up to a man who cannot ask for help, and Jesus has compassion on him and heals him unilaterally without waiting on the man to ask for it, without waiting on the man to exercise saving faith. Jesus heals him. And is this man saved? We don't have a sinner's prayer quote spoken in this passage anywhere. But I think when we get to the end, we could say safely that he is. So that's important to note right now. The method of salvation isn't a formula. It is the mercy, the compassion of Jesus Christ, the grace of God that goes forth. It goes out on its own. Okay? Jesus is the initiator here. He is the author and finisher of our faith. Why wouldn't he be the author? That is the guy who sits down to write the story in the beginning. He writes the story of Legion's faith. He begins the story. He's the initiator, and he is the consummator. He brings it about, and he fulfills the faith of this Gerasene demoniac, if you will. So I think we see the compassion of Christ. That's grace. That's mercy. And you might say, well, how does it all work? Did he do this, or did he pray this prayer first, or did he have faith first? Or, and theologians debate those sorts of things. And that's fine. But we better not lose the idea, the understanding that God is a merciful and compassionate God, and that goes out ahead of all of the doctrinal minutia of what comes first, and does he have this or that, or Jesus saves people. That's what he came to earth to do. He saved this man. This man, from what we can tell, did not call out to Jesus first. Jesus saw him suffering, had mercy on him, had compassion on him, and extended grace to him where he didn't deserve it, where he didn't even ask for it. Healed him. Now, maybe Jesus healed him first, and then he offered some sort of prayer. We don't know. All we know is that Jesus healed someone of his own volition, someone that wasn't even asking for it, it appears. I think that's a safe bet here. So, what's interesting, our point says demons recognize the Son of God's authority, and they do. The demons come out, and they see him, and they're like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here, Jesus? The Son of God, the Most High God. And they're like, I know who you are. I know exactly who you are. What are you doing here? How did you find me? I was hiding in that tomb over there, and here you show up on the shore. They know who he is. They recognize his authority, and they are scared because they say, please don't torment us. You have the right to do that. You're God, we know. I mean, who can torment a demon but God? They know who he is. They recognize his authority. But that to me is the lesser important thing of what's happening here, or maybe at least it's a side. It's just as important. There's something just as important going on here that's in addition to that. We've talked about already the mercy of Jesus being demonstrated in having compassion and healing this man that couldn't ask for it. Why couldn't he ask for it? Because he's possessed by evil spirits, demons, the worst of the worst. And Jesus showed mercy to the man, but maybe even greater mercy in the next thing that he did. Listen to what happens. Verse 31. They begged him not to command him to enter to the abyss. Verse 32. And they begged him to let them enter the pigs. The demons are petitioning Jesus for mercy. Does he have the right to send them into the abyss, into punishment, into damnation? Yes, he does. He has the right judicially. They deserve God's wrath and judgment. He has the right authoritatively. He is the guy who with the power, and his word is law. You know, even though they deserve punishment, I can't tell a demon to go to the abyss. But Jesus has the right to do that. What would keep him from doing that? They certainly feared that he was going to. They begged him. What's crazy is Jesus listened. He listened to the prayers for mercy, the calls for mercy from demons. That's insane. I mean, in a good way. How compassionate is Jesus? And the next thing that happens is a mind blower. It's unbelievable. He doesn't just listen to their cries for mercy. He grants them. This to me is outside my scope of understanding that Jesus would be merciful to a demon that was clearly, literally, just in the act of committing evil. It was oppressing a human being, a child of God, a son of Adam, one of God's creations, an image bearer. And now Jesus is being merciful, listening to their pleas, don't send us to the abyss. Look at those pigs. Let us enter the pigs. And the Son of God has compassion on demons. Now, is there a human being who is worse than a demon? I would wager right now that we could say probably not. There are some really bad human beings. But is there a human being who is a worse person than a demon? Probably not. And to me, this tells me if God has mercy on a demon, if God hears the prayers of compassion and mercy from a demon, God will hear the prayer and the supplication for mercy from any human being, no matter how bad they are, no matter how far they're gone. The worst person you can think of in your life, the worst person in the history of the world, is not too far gone. Jesus will hear that prayer. He will listen to the cry for mercy. I believe it. I think he will. Now, what's the interesting thing here? I've already teased you about this some, but did the demons go away justified? They asked for mercy. They recognized the Son of God. They recognized him in their heads. They knew who he was in their mind. I mean, not necessarily their heads, but mentally, intellectually, they knew exactly who he was. They understood his authority. They prayed to him. They asked him for mercy, and he gave it to them. But did they go away justified? Did Jesus just save these demons from hell? Or did he merely postpone the judgment? I think we don't have any reason to say that these demons were pardoned from sin. But isn't it amazing that the things that they did here are kind of the top of the list, and sometimes the only thing in our list of things that we need to do in order to be right with God? And I don't mean really, I mean the things that we say and think. We think oftentimes that if a person believes that God is who he says he is, and that they pray to God in some sort of, prayer for mercy, that automatically they're saved. Well, that's not what saves you. If that is the case, then these demons are going to be with us in heaven. They did not put their trust in Jesus. They did not put their faith in Jesus. They did not align themselves. They did not unite themselves with Jesus. They did not want to submit themselves unto Jesus' lordship. They just recognized that he was God. They didn't want to be united with him and give up their sinful ways. As a matter of fact, they said, send us into the pigs. And what did they do as soon as they got into the pigs? I don't know if this passage says. Yeah, verse 33. So we know they didn't give up their sinful ways. As soon as they got into the pigs, they caused the entire herd of pigs to commit suicide. I toyed with the idea of calling it swinecide, but I thought that's a little bit too on the nose for a joke. But I've already said it, so if you laugh, then that's fine. But just know, I wasn't really part of my story here. It was just throwing that out there. It caused them to commit suicide. Shouldn't laugh about that, but it's an evil thing. Even if you don't care about pigs, you care about the people who owned the pigs. Their livelihood is now ruined. And the people who were planning on eating the pigs for food, they don't have anything to eat, or at least missing something to eat. So they committed something evil immediately after Jesus has granted them mercy. So we know their heart is not changed. So what I'm telling you is the same thing that James would say to you, that even the demons believe that God is one and shudder. It is not enough to know who God is. It is not enough to understand God's power and authority. It is not enough to be doctrinally sound, and it is not even enough to cry out to God for mercy. We have to cry out to Jesus as Lord, Son of the Most High God. Is not Lord. It's not my Lord. It's not my master. I just know who you are. And so the demons know who God is. They did not go away justified. Even though they're doctrinally sound, and even though they have received some sort of measure of mercy and prayers were sent up to God. So be careful with that. What does it mean to be saved? It means to be united with Jesus. It means to cast your lot in with him. It means to put your faith and your trust in your hands, your life in his hands. Not just to ask him, please don't let me feel pain. Please give me money to feed my family and buy a new house. Please don't let me lose my job. Those are prayers, but those are the kinds of things even lost people will pray for. and potentially even sometimes get from God. There's nothing in the Bible that says God, stuffs his ears and can't hear someone who's not a believer. I think this is a perfect case to tell us that. But God doesn't treat those people like his children. So something to remember. All right, on to the next point. We're actually going to take the next 2 points together. We're going to do point 2 and 3 together. In my notes here, I feel like there's just not enough to separate the two. So we're going to take them together. We're going to look at verses 34 all the way through verse 39. And the people fear the Son of God's authorities. Point 2. Point 3 is the man that's been healed, the demoniac, obeys the Son of God's authority. So we're going to look at verse 34 all the way to 39. And when the herdsmen saw what happened, they fled and told it in the city and in the country. Then the people went out to see what happened. And they came to see Jesus, and found the man from whom the demons had gone, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. So they were afraid of Jesus because he had this kind of power. They heard about the pigs, but when they saw this man sitting there in his right mind, a man that they could not bind with chains, Jesus had spoken a word and completely healed and tamed this man, so to speak. And they were afraid of that kind of power. And those who had seen it told him how the demon-possessed man had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked him to depart from them, for they were seized with great fear. Something interesting here, too, is that, the demons asked him for something. The demons asked Jesus to have mercy on them, let them go into the pigs, and he did that, even though they weren't saved. And then these people asked Jesus to leave because they were afraid of him, and they didn't really believe in him either. And he also did that. So it's interesting to see the way Jesus is acquiescing to these requests. He's granting these requests, even though these people aren't believers, the demons or the Gerasenes. He's doing what they ask him to do. All right? And so, verse 38 through 39, the man from whom the demons had gone, so we don't even hear his name, begged that he might be with him. But Jesus sent him away, not just to any place. He said, return to your home. Go home and declare how much God has done for you. And he went away proclaiming throughout the whole city how much Jesus had done for him. So there's a few things here. Let me start kind of at the end of it. What had God done for him? Jesus said, go home and proclaim how much Jesus had done for him, or how much God has done for you. What did God do for him? The only thing we have recorded here is that he cast the demons out of him. But I think clearly Jesus not only healed him spiritually, but he also saved him. Right? He forgave his sins, I believe. And I believe that can be seen because remember, the demons had a right doctrine. They knew who Jesus was, and they knew enough to fear his power, and they had good doctrine. But they didn't follow Jesus. They wanted to go into a bunch of pigs. This man wanted to follow the Son of God. They wanted to be with Jesus. And you see, that is one of the, if not the main difference between the sinful and the saved. The saved want to be with Jesus. They want to be where Jesus is. They want to follow Jesus. They want to obey Jesus. The sinful, they just want to get out of trouble. I want to get out of hell free card, or I want you to protect my family right now, or I want you to support me. I want you calm my fears. I want you to give me something right now to soothe me in the moment. But I don't want you, Jesus. I just want the stuff that your power can give to me. And this man wanted Jesus. And I think that's how we know that he was converted, that he was changed in his heart. He begged that he might be with him. The demons begged to go into a bunch of pigs. This man begged to be with the Son of God. The demons begged to be away from Jesus. He begged to be with him. And interestingly, Jesus granted the request of the demons to go to the pigs, but he didn't grant this man's request. So we don't always get what we want as Christians. Isn't this a weird passage that Jesus would give the demons what they want, but not give the Christian what he wants, or the follower? We might think, well, that is just unfair. But here we see Jesus had a reason. He had a reason. He had something more important. He had something better for this man to do. And what was the better thing? Go to Arabia and spread my word. Go home and sell all that you have and then move to Spain. No. I find it very fascinating. We tend to latch on to certain texts and say, this is what Jesus calls people to do. Look at the rich young ruler text. Jesus tells him to go home and sell everything he has and give it to the poor and come follow him. And so we think this is what Jesus is calling us to do. If you want to be a super spiritual good Christian, you have to let go of all your worldly possessions and follow Jesus. Well, not everybody has to do that. The one man says, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go home and bury my father. No, if the one you let the dead bury their dead. The one who puts his hand to the plow and turns back isn't worthy of me, right? So we think, well, we can't have any earthly attachments. If you want to be a really good Christian, you got to cast off your home and move to a foreign land. Those are the really strong Christians, the missionaries, the ministers who pack up and leave. This man wanted to do that. And Jesus said, there's a different ministry for you. Your ministry, Legion, or whoever your name is, your ministry is to go home. Go home and tell your family what God has done for you. Go home and tell your neighbors what God has done for you. Go home and tell your friends what God has done for you. Go home and tell your coworkers what God has done for you. See, to go home is a calling. To stay home is a calling. It is not a lesser calling. It is a calling. Jesus calls probably most of us home. Go home and talk to your family. Go home and talk to your friends. It is a very difficult thing for people like church planners and missionaries, because they don't have any right to speak of important things to people. They didn't grow up with them. You know, they're not old buddies or friends. You have the right to say to your friend, you know what? I need to tell you something. It's going to be hard to hear, but I think you need to hear this. And that friend is going to say, well, okay, we've been friends a long time. What is it? And then you can share the gospel with that person because you've earned that right. And so that's what the demoniac had to earn the right. Not necessarily earned it, but he had the right because he was family, he was friend. And God called him to stay home. And we sometimes feel guilty as those who stay home, like, man, if I was really spiritual, I'd be a missionary. Or if I was really spiritual, I'd give up my business and go into the ministry and move across country to somewhere and set up shop. But that's not true. Sure, people are called to ministry, and we need missionaries. But God calls just as many people home. He calls them home. Go home and declare how much God has done for you. And you know what? No matter where you are, you can do that. You can do that right now. You can declare how much God has done for you. I'm sure your life hasn't been perfect. I'm sure you have had difficulties. Maybe you're going through difficulties right now. But if you're a believer, then God has done something good for you. And you can share that. You can tell people what God has done for you. And if nothing else, that is your calling, to share what God has done for you.